Okay, I am here with Jay. So, Jay, why don't you explain who you are?
Oh my goodness, that's a loaded question. So Jay Schwedelson, I got two businesses. I have an agency called Outcome Media, about a 100-person company in South Florida in the United States here. We do a lot of demand generation for business and consumer clients, email, direct mail, podcast advertising, digital media. So I've been doing that for 25 years. And then my other business, a media business called Guru Media Hub, and we put on big virtual conferences and we have websites like subjectline.com. Everything we do there is free. So that's my media business. So I don't know. I'm all over the place. I don't know what I do.
So, how I came across you was at Inbound a few years ago, the first time I went, and I said to everyone afterwards, of all the talks, yours was by far my favorite, by far my
Oh,
favorite,
thanks. Thank
and
you.
and ever since then it has continued to be so. And there's some good speakers, I should say as well. Like you
Thanks.
were better than Ryan Reynolds, you were better than Reese Witherspoon, you were
Wow.
better than Obama. I'm going to say in terms of value, it was big for me.
Wow.
So
I owe you like a Starbucks card now or something.
so so it was really good. And what I loved is like I'd seen quite a few of your email talks about latest email stats, so we can get into that a little bit later on as well. But this year, for the first time, you did the main stage, right? And if you
Right.
haven't seen the NBA, it's a big stage, right? It is a big stage to go on
It
to.
is. It's
And
huge.
and you did this amazing talk, which I want to kind of reflect on a little bit in just a moment. But it's one of those talks, it's stuck with me. And there's something that's like kind of life-changingly stuck with me, which is that not that I have to, but I get to. Because
Yeah.
I do a lot of training and a lot of travel and a lot of lecturing and presentations. And my diary gets to the point, and just before we came on this, we were talking a little about being a bit kinder to ourselves in our diary management and trying to have a bit more time. And I'm
Yeah.
always traveling, and I look at my diary, and go, "Oh, I've got to do this, and I've got to run there, and I've got to go to this thing." And it's really changed my mindset. And the fact that I look at it and go, "Oh, I get to go and speak in front of these people. Oh, I get to go." And I think that it
Right.
really stuck with me. And the other thing that stuck with me was that dumber people have been successful. That's reassured me when things are going wrong a little bit as well. So
Yes.
so just give us the what the talk was about, and then
Yeah.
there's a couple of things I'll kind of hopefully try and tease out from that.
Yeah, the talk it was as much for everybody that was there as it was for me because it's constantly things that I have to remind myself about. And the overall theme was this idea of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And really, in this world of AI, this tidal wave of generic garbage that's coming at us, if it's not already here, the only way that our brands are going to stand out, your company brand, your products, your services, your personal brand, is to be more of who you are and to share with the world more of who you are, your ideas, your thoughts, and just being real. And it's uncomfortable because we do like to have that separation between our work life and our personal life and kind of like our brand to be of a certain voice and tone. But that's not really what we're seeing that's winning the day anymore. It's this really personality driven, this realness driven thing that's driving demand for business marketers, consumer marketers, doesn't matter. And so it's uncomfortable to do that. And there's also a lot of what I've always dealt with is this idea of imposter syndrome. If you're in marketing, a lot of times you fall into marketing, or at least the portion of marketing that you're in, right? You didn't plan on doing whatever it is that you're doing, but there you are. And in some ways, you're not a doctor who got their, advanced degree or a lawyer or whatever. You're just in marketing and you're like there. And sort of like, am I really qualified to even be talking about or doing the things that I'm doing? I always feel that way. And early on in my career, my grandfather, I was struggling, and I just had no confidence in what I was doing. He put his arm around me, and he said to me, because I'm not the smartest guy in the world, and he said, "Listen, Jay," he goes, "stupider people than you have been able to do it." And I was like, "Wait a minute."
I love that. It's
I go,
stuck with
"That
me
might
so
be
much.
true." I go, "That might be true." I go, "There's somebody out there who is an idiot, bigger idiot than me, and they were able to do the thing. So I got to be able to do it too." And so that really, really that resonated with me. And then the last piece of it, which you alluded to, is this idea of I get to, and not I have to. And I didn't make that up. I read it somewhere. I don't know. But every single day, I'll look at my calendar. I have these calls, and I'll be like, I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to do that thing. I just don't want to do it. And then when I change that dialogue in my brain from I have to do that thing, and I change it to I get to do it, There are people out there that would dream to have the job that you have, that would dream to have that call that you have on your schedule today, that would dream to do that webinar. They would dream you have their goal. And when you realize that, it really can change the energy you put behind things and your purpose and your drive. So these are the things that kind of stick with me at all times.
So talk to us about your online conference, because from that idea of you saying, I've got a great idea to an online conference, and basically people
Yeah.
telling you what a terrible idea that was.
Yeah, so coming out of COVID, I was attending all of these virtual events, big virtual conferences, virtual webinars, and that's what we all did because we couldn't get together, right? And they were really terrible. They were so boring. Basically, everyone collectively around the world decided, oh, we're going to take whatever we did in person, try to push it online, and that's what we got to do because nobody can get together. And now COVID's over, right? Everyone's getting back together, and yet we're still stuck with these really horribly boring webinars, or virtual conferences that are terrible, or add-ons to in-person events, the virtual component that are all terrible. And I was like, there's this technology now that we can do these virtual events, whether they be small events or large events, and yet we're ruining it. We're making it boring, making it terrible. I go, there's got to be a better way. So I started, and within my media business, this idea of we started we did one virtual conference called Guru Conference, and the idea behind it, that conference is an email marketing event, and it's free. And we said we're going to try to make this thing fun. We're going to make it crazy. We're going to make it engaging. We're going to make it different. And I basically took all the advice I got from everybody who puts on webinars and conferences, whatever, and I did the opposite. They would be like, oh, well, you need to have on demand ready to go as soon as it's over. I was like, screw that. You're on demand. Nobody's going to show up. We got rid of on demand, right?
Correct.
We put in ridiculous things. We had, movie stars show up doing ridiculous things. We did eating competitions. We did anything we could do. And it really created this energy around our events. And so, in general, I think that so much advice, best practice advice for anything you're doing, it could be an email you're sending out, could be an ad that you're doing, a digital media ad or social media post. We follow these best practices. And I believe the majority of best practices are garbage. They're this legacy information that lots of people follow that is a recipe towards the toilet bowl. It's an absolute waste of time and energy. And you almost have to do the opposite of whatever the best practice is. And that's where you're going to find success.
So I love the fact that you had your meetup at Inbound. And
Yeah.
I've never seen carnage quite like it when everyone saw there was how much free stuff there was, right? So just
Right.
explain to people kind of how it works.
Yeah, yeah. So at Inbound, which is HubSpot's conference, they had 12,000 people in person. So HubSpot said, hey, you have all these people that are interested in your Guru Media Hub business that want to hang out, whatever. We do a meetup on the show floor. We said, sure. I said, but get ready because we're going to give out a lot of swag and do a lot of stuff. And I'm a big believer in swag. I think that people are sleeping on swag, like hoodies and t-shirts and stuff. And so we brought, thousands of pieces of hoodies and all these things. We gave it out. And what people get wrong about swag, it's a relatively inexpensive way to make your brand explode in a good way, right? And people were like literally clamoring for all this swag. And the secret sauce about swag is you don't make swag a mug or a shirt or whatever that just has your logo on it. Nobody cares about your brand. Your brand is boring. I mean, it just is. I'm sorry. What you want to do is create something really cool. Like, so we had an 80s theme to our conference, 1980s. And we had these big, bright blue hoodies, and it said in crazy letters, stay rad. And then underneath that, in small letters, it had our brand logo. And everybody wanted the hoodies because they want to walk around the hoodie. It says stay rad. But when they do that, they're thinking about my brand. They do have my little logo on there. They're excited about it. People ask them about it. And so the power of swag has really elevated our brand in a big way. And we have a swag budget, a significant swag budget every year, because I think it's the secret sauce to getting brand recognition.
Yeah, I mean, there must be a serious budget because there were a lot of hoodies and a lot of t-shirts. And the thing that amazed me more than anything else was the stickers. How, like,
Oh yeah,
just to explain to people, there's a table and there's maybe
yeah,
20 different stickers, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
people are rather than just grabbing. This is a civilized crowd. They weren't just grabbing handfuls, but they were selectively going through them. Like, this one resonates with me. I'll take this one. And it was like people were getting a good selection of them, but
yeah.
they
That
seemed
was
to be
fun.
like
So
massively popular. And
yeah,
it
so we
just
came
thinks,
up with this idea that was totally ridiculous. I said, I have this idea. We're going to get these like giant long tables, like 3 or 4 long tables. and we made stickers, these really slick looking stickers with the most ridiculous sayings on them you could possibly imagine. Like I got, 99 click-throughs, but a conversion ain't one. All these dumb marketing things that we came up with, like really, really funny, ridiculous stickers. And normally when you go to a booth, they'll have like a little stack maybe of stickers or pens. You take one, whatever. And we're like, no, 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 let's do this differently. So we took, I think we made actually 40 different
Right.
stickers and we ordered, I think, 500 of each one. And we took them all and we shook them up like in a bag, like completely unorganized. We put them all over the tables. And it was like a sticker hunt. You had to go through and find what you wanted to grab. And within, I think, 30 minutes, thousands of the stickers were all taken because, again, it was this interactive thing you were involved with. Oh, I need to find that one. I need to find this one. And people were engaged and they leave there. You know, the people may not remember a year or two from now the sticker that they got, but they're going to remember how that experience of grabbing the stickers made them feel. And they're going to associate with our brand. And that's what you have to do. You want to create these moments of engagement that people get excited about. It could be a social post on LinkedIn. It could be a sticker. It could be anything. But that's the world now. We want experience.
Yeah, and I think to give some context, I remember I bought them. I had a handful of these, and I brought them back, and I was showing the team here, and then someone turned around and went, "Well, the brand's not even on them." And I was like, "No, that's the whole point. It
Right.
was like a real experience." And then,
That's
which
right.
brings me on to the kind of like being your authentic self. Um, there was the whole reality TV thing, which you've now got a reputation for, right? But this was making me laugh because we did this photo, and it's like this is the number one marketing podcast in the US. We're the number one marketing podcast in the
Right.
UK, and I was like, I've just finished Maths UK, right? And it's like a 26-hour commitment to watch this ridiculous set of people and these ridiculous things. And everyone was just like, this is really weird that he's into this stuff as well. Like, it's like
Right.
you're both very sad people. So just tell people about this a little bit.
It's funny. So within my podcast and my newsletters, at the end of all of it, I always talk about like the TV I'm watching or the food I'm eating. And I happen to have always liked reality TV. I don't know why. I don't know what that says about me. I'm not a very, intellectual person at all. And I mean, I watch all the different reality shows, Love is Blind I mean, you name it, I watch it. I don't know what the different ones on in the UK, but I watched them all. Okay. Love Island for sure. And so I would always talk about it. And then when I would put out my newsletter, put my podcast, I would get more feedback. People emailing me, reacted about that than whatever the marketing thing was that I was talking about. And always I was like, really? That's what it and what I realize is people want to interact with people. They want to know like what you're about and what you think. And so, finding those things that you're interested in, that you can share, people love it. Like I share in my house, my family, every Tuesday night, we eat salmon. It's called Salmon Tuesday because we try to be relatively healthy one night a week. And it's torture. My kids hate it. Everybody hates it. But for some reason, that's interesting. And you need to find these things that you can share that people can kind of all feel good about, that are not polarizing, and that's the content we want. And it really has kind of oddly elevated whatever the heck it is I'm doing. I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, you walked on stage and you said about, what I had for breakfast. And it's like that could be
Correct.
interesting, right? And then you kind of
Always.
reflected back on why you'd eaten that for breakfast. And it's just that bringing that human story to life a little bit, right?
Absolutely. It's 100% right. The more that you can insert humanity in what you're doing, what your brand is doing, the more that people gravitate around it. I mean, and I talked about it in my talk, but if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, he is a great case study in this. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Meta, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. If you're going 2 years ago, Meta wasn't doing that great. And every social post that he did, everything he did was very kind of boring. It looked like it was like some sort of like Shutterstock image that you bought online. It was terrible, very generic. And then somebody got a hold of him, right, and said, you got to change this up. And in the last 2 years, you see him doing all these crazy posts. He's surfing, he's got no shirt on, he's doing jujitsu, he's doing ridiculous things. And the value of Meta has skyrocketed. The usage on the platforms have skyrocketed, and all of a sudden, you want to have a pint with Mark Zuckerberg, which I would never have wanted to do 2 years ago. That would have been like the last person on earth I want to have a pint with, right? And so he has access to all the data on Earth. He knows that the humanity of what we're doing, inserting that into your brand identity is what matters now. And so I think we could all take a page from that playbook.
Yeah, so I mean, you recorded some videos the other day about lo-fi content and how that
Yeah.
fits in with this time of year. So talk us through that.
Yeah, lo-fi content is really quite simply when you take your camera, you point at yourself, and you say, "Hey, I'm out here in the park today. My dog just went to the restroom. I got to go clean that up. Let me go post that." Now, it doesn't have to be that graphic. It could be, "Hey, wanted to share this new tip with you." You point the camera at yourself, say, "We've been trying this in my company. You guys should try it too." This idea of you don't have a green screen, you don't have some slick video that your company has put together, or anything like that, that it is lo-fi. It feels real. It feels like you're able to connect more. Lo-fi content as compared to hi-fi content, which is kind of the slick stuff. Lo-fi content in the last 12 months has seen an engagement increase on LinkedIn of over 70%, on Instagram of over 60%, and specifically this time of year. As you head into the end of year, that is what we want to see. We want to see your ugly holiday sweater. We want to see what you're eating for your holiday meals. We want to see, what's on your shopping list. What's a funny thing that's happened when you were traveling. We want to see the humanity of you. Lo-fi content is at its peak this time of year in terms of engagement because that's where our minds are at. So to me, it should be a priority for every company to prioritize lo-fi content for all year long, but especially right now.
So let's move on to email a little bit because we've
Yeah.
long been kind of going on our podcast about how email is just underutilized. The more that you've lost control of social, the more important it is. So just give us your opinion on where kind of email is at the moment.
Yeah, your email database is the most valuable asset you have in your company, in my opinion. That's really that simple because there's no other channel on earth, not a social media channel, not search, not direct mail, not TV, where at any given moment you can decide to communicate with your entire audience and it will reach your entire audience for relatively no cost. Doesn't exist anywhere else, right? So it's not a matter of does email work for you or not work for you. If it doesn't work for you, you're just not doing it right. Because right now, email has had, it's like in a renaissance period. The highest engagement it's ever had has been this calendar year in the history of email. And it really comes down to the basic stuff. Obviously, how well is your database in terms of clean? Is it, organized? Are you getting rid of the bad data? What is your subject line? What's your pre-header? What's the content you're putting out? And people always make the mistake of thinking, well, the reason our email marketing doesn't do well is that we're sending out too much. I think we're annoying people. That's what I hear every day of my life. And that's ridiculous to me. It has nothing to do with how frequently you're sending something out. It has to do with how relevant it is of what you're sending out. Relevancy and frequency are married together as it relates to email. You could send me an email 3 times a day if it has really great content in it, and I'm excited about it, right? So you can't send less, and then all of a sudden your email performance is going to radically get better. You have bad performance because you're sending out boring stuff. You're sending out stuff that's only for you and not for the recipient to the benefit of them. And you're not taking advantage of, little things you could do in the subject line or in the pre-header or whatever to try to win the day. So huge fan of email. It's not going anywhere. And the beautiful part about this time of year that I don't think enough marketers think about is a lot of times we look at our inbox this time of year and say, oh, I'm getting flooded with so much garbage and spam this time of year. I don't agree. All year long, the greatest brands on the planet are focused on this time of year to drive their sales and performance, right? This is the time of year where everything's going to happen. And they take all the best marketing minds they have in their company and their agencies and budget, and they work on how can we put together the absolute best marketing program. And then they hit send on that email. And when you get that email from that amazing brand this time of year, it is the best that they've got. This is the time you want to analyze everything. What time did they send it out? What was their from address, their subject line, their headline, the landing page? How many words do they have? How do they structure it? Because this is like a free tutorial on how to do it right now. So I love this time of year for email.
And you were talking about one word makes a difference. And whenever I've seen your presentations, you're kind of looking at the stats for now. So just maybe talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. One word does make a difference. I know people think it's ridiculous, but you have your subject line, right? So in my company, we have a website called subjectline.com. Where we're constantly analyzing what are the words and things that'll get more of your emails opened? A lot of people say, well, the open rate doesn't matter. It's about the click-through and sales. And that's true that it's about the click-through and sales. But here's the story. If they don't open up the email, who cares what's inside? Sorry, it doesn't matter. So we got to get it opened, right? So this time of year, so for example, if you are a business to business marketer and you start your subject line with things like Outlook, 2025 trends, 2025 predictions, 2025 forecasts, all we care about right now, what is going to happen in 2025? Outlook, trends, predictions, forecast. Those emails with those subject lines see a massive increase in engagement because that's the mindset we're in as a business marketer, right? And on the consumer side, obviously we have all the holiday stuff. But beyond all the holiday stuff, I don't need to tell you, hey, that you put a subject line that says our biggest sale of the year. That's ridiculous. Everybody knows to do that right now. What you can do beyond that, though, on the consumer side, is to recognize loyalty. Most companies don't actually have a loyalty marketing program because they're hard. It's hard to have a rewards program and a points program. That's complicated. But the simplest form of loyalty that you can do that drives massive engagement this time of year, it will say something only for our VIP customers, special whatever. Just because you bought from us this year, blah, blah, blah. If you send out emails recognizing the people that bought from you this year and that you're giving them something extra, it's that recognition plus bonus offer. It does incredibly well this time of year, and it's the simplest form of loyalty marketing, and it works. It makes that person feel connected to your brand. And we've seen it from all sorts of data. Marigold releases data on this all the time, that when someone feels loyal to your brand, they will spend over 60% more dollars and pounds or euros, whatever it is, on your product, even if there's a lesser costing product that is of the same level, because they're loyal to what it is that you're putting out. So a simple loyalty program right now goes really far.
So you're talking about this time of year, and I saw a video that you'd posted, and I just thought it'd be worth sharing. When you just talk about getting started, and at
Yeah.
particularly this time of the year, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems everybody has for their personal life, for their career, for their businesses, they're always waiting to get started on a thing. Oh, in a few months, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to start that podcast. In a few months, I'm going to try to advance my career. I'm going to do this thing. In a few months, I'm going to go start going to the gym. In a few months, I'm actually going to start that business. In a few months, I have a side hustle. I know I can make a lot of money if I do it. And it's always not now. Now's not the time. I can't, my kids are young. They're about to get ready for school. I'm too busy. I have an ill relative I'm helping out. I don't have enough money right now. I don't have the time, but in a few months, it'll be better. And that will be the case for the rest of your life. Now is always the right time. Yesterday was the right time to just get started. The biggest fail that people have is that they don't actually do the things. And then they fast forward, okay, now it's the end of their life and they have regret. And to me, regret is worse than failure. I would rather try 1,000 things, have them all fail, than be really old and say, you know what, I never tried the thing, whether it's in my life, my company, my career. And I say it's for myself too. Whatever it is, I'm like, I'm not waiting another day, another week, another month. I'm going to get started today, even if I'm not ready. I don't care. I had a talk with Barbara Corcoran. She came on my show, and she's the one from Shark Tank in the United States, is a really big, investing show. And I said, when you're starting any company, anything that you're doing, she's at a $5 billion company. I said, do you put together some sort of big business plan? You have a whole team? She goes, absolutely not. She goes, I hate business plans. Business plans are where great ideas go to die because all you're doing is planning, planning, planning. Go out there, try, and then you pivot. It's never going to wind up being whatever it is that your plan was, right? When I did my first virtual conference, I didn't intend on having a media company. That was not my plan. It just happened. We did things. I tried other things that did not work. Epic failure. You keep iterating, you keep moving on. So I'm a big fan of just get started like now.
So talk to us about, we haven't mentioned the podcast at all, so we should talk about your podcast.
All
And
right.
just how did you How did you build it? How did you get success? Because I mean, hitting that #1 spot in the US chart was an impressive feat. So talk us about how you
Yeah,
kind
it's
of came
crazy.
up with it and where it's gone.
Yeah, so I've been podcasting now for a little over a year and a half. I started a year and a half ago with this podcast called Do This, Not That. I knew nothing. When I started my podcast, a week before I started my podcast, I'd never listened to a podcast, not once. I had no idea about any of this stuff. And what had happened was we had some extra marketing budget that we canceled one program. And they said, well, what should we do with this? We got to use it for something. I'm like, well, let's have a podcast. Everybody has a podcast. So we started this podcast. And the way we started it was horrible. And this is ironic. The way we started was doing interviews. We would interview people, and that was it. And I would interview the different people, and I hated it because I was like, I don't know how to interview anybody. I hate this. And sometimes I would interview people and they were epically boring. And I didn't even want to air the podcast. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to listen to that. Why would anybody want to listen to that? And they were really long. They were like 45 minutes, an hour. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. So I said, listen, if we're gonna do a podcast, we're gonna just do this differently because I hate this format. And we started pumping out these really short episodes. All of our episodes, we try to keep them under 12 minutes, basically, almost all of our episodes. And we pump out a bunch of these episodes, quick tips, different things. And at the end of every episode, I said, let's talk about our real life. And I'll talk about, like I said, the dumbest things. Somebody said something mean to me. I ate something terrible. I saw a horrible movie, whatever it is. We insert that into the end of every one of the podcasts. And then it started to, people started to listen to it. They would say, you know what? It's short. That's great. I have time for that. It's not horribly boring. And they learned something. And I try to really keep it very, very, very tactful that you listen, you have something you could test, great, move on. And we started moving up the charts. And it's a funny thing when you move up the charts, because it wasn't something I was intentionally trying to do, especially when you get to #1. I mean, you start getting hit up by the craziest people on the planet about the craziest things. And so it's pretty cool. And podcasting is weird. I'm glad I'm doing it. It is a hamster wheel. I'll tell you, it's one of the harder things I've done, not doing the actual podcast, but just not stopping because it never stops, right? It just never stops. And I would tell you for anybody out there about anything, what I've learned about life and business is I'm not particularly bright, but I am willing to be consistent. And what I've determined is that consistency will beat out almost everything else in business. And so I think I can beat 95% of people because they will stop. If it's a newsletter that you send out, if it's a podcast you're doing, if it's posting on social media, most people do it for 3 months, for 6 months, and then they stop. If you just don't stop, like my podcast, eventually you'll win because everybody else stops. So consistency to me is what I've learned from podcasting.
So that it's an interesting thing you say because this podcast is the same age as my youngest son, so it's 14 years old now. We've been doing it for that
Wow,
long. So, and that
that's
was that.
crazy.
And it was literally Kieran and I saying we used to meet up and have these chats, and it was a bit of like a therapy session because nothing works, right? Like this is how you do it, and you do it, and it doesn't work. And it was us just going, "What? That's just terrible," and this didn't work, and I did that, but that was quite good. Same thing. We just put that conversation online, and it kind of it hit the spot as well.
Well,
So
you guys hit #1 in the UK. I mean, you guys
yeah,
are
and
it.
we're normally like top 15 kind of in the US as well, and so on. So
Yeah.
it's doing pretty good. So how can people get in contact? Where's the best places to kind of get in contact with you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I post a ridiculous amount of stupid stuff on LinkedIn, so please connect with me there. I would love that. And just to make it real easy, you can go to my full name, which is horrible to say and spell, but jayschwedelson.com. You can find everything I'm up to there. And if you're really bored, you can try the podcast. Do This, Not That for Marketers. It cures insomnia. So there you go.
I actually did get a message from someone saying, "I love your podcast. It helps me get to sleep." And I was like, wow, what a thing to say to someone. That's incredible.
That's
You
really
need to
nice.
watch Married at First Sight UK. I'm telling you, that it's just finished. It's the craziest. You liked Love is Blind UK, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Married at
yes.
First Sight UK was just a level beyond. Like these
Well, I'm
people
going to
must
watch
all
it.
have PTSD now. I mean, they must all
I'm
be
watching
pretty
it
traumatized.
tonight.
Yeah, I'm
I'm
telling you.
going to watch tonight. Love is Blind UK was better than Love is Blind US.
Yeah,
So I will take your recommendation very seriously.
give it a go. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And all
Yeah.
those links will be in the show notes for everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.